Before we get into this video at all, I ain't even gonna start the video intro, none of that. I want to thank you guys for getting me to 900 subs. Where I'm 100 away from that 1,000 goal, that real threshold that is very hard for many of us content creators to hit. So I just want to thank you guys before we start this video from the bottom of my heart. It means the world to me. It happened from that last video, the Pistons video. So a lot of you guys, hopefully you're back watching this videos. Shout out to you. I appreciate you. Again, bottom of my heart, love you guys. I'm gonna keep pushing out content like I've been doing. It's only up from here. We're next up. I'm telling you this right now. If you here at the 900 mark, you gonna be able to look back, I'd say about 2-3 years from now and say, bro, I remember when I was with him with about 900 subs. He's come a long way. Hopefully you guys stay long enough to tell that story. But again, I appreciate you guys and thank you. Now let's get into the video. That's too much of the let's get into the video, man. I appreciate y'all though, for real, y'all real.
Daryl Morey is a liar, and I would never be a part of an organization that he's a part of. Let me say that again. Daryl Morey is a liar, and I would never be a part of an organization that he's a part of again.
So we all know the situation that's going on with James Harden right now. I do not have to speak on it. I don't really have to say much about it. You guys have seen the video. We've all seen the video, and it was funny because it was during his tour in China, and we all know China does not have the best relationship with Daryl Morey. So that makes that whole situation even more funnier because that's just, James Harden, you're petty for that. Let's be honest. Now, if you've been living under a rock and you don't know what's going on, or you just don't really follow off-season basketball too much, and I'm gonna be honest, James Harden just revived the offseason as it stands right now because it has been dead up until this point, and I think it was gonna be dead up until the season beginning. So shout out to you, James Harden, because you helping us content creators out. But if you have been living under a rock, basically put James Harden, he asked for a trade request at the beginning of this offseason strictly because he took a pay cut with the intentions of coming back and end up getting a payday as a result. But we now see that Daryl Morey is either A, not living up to his word, or B, gave him a loose promise that James Harden took as law. And at this point, James Harden, he's pretty much at that door knocking because it's time to collect. It's rent time, rent money is due. And Daryl Morey, he's not trying to budge. Now, I'm gonna be honest with you guys. Usually I'm against Harden in a situation like this. And I've been a guy that I'm not as big on Harden as many people are within the last 10 years or so. Personally, I just didn't really like it because though he was a regular season warrior in the playoffs, he either got injured or he shrunk. There were times where he had great playoff runs. I'm not going to diminish that at all. But for the most part, once it got to that time, it wasn't the same Harden that we saw before. And that was a problem for me. It wasn't winning basketball. But in this instance, I'm with James Harden. Now, normally you hear a pay cut and you're expecting just a couple M's, just nothing too big, something to free up cap space and stuff. He's taken a pay cut of almost $15 million. Some say 14. Most people are saying 15. So I'm gonna just go with the max amount, and that's 15. $15 million is a lot of money, but let me put it into perspective so we're not looking at it in the grand scheme of things. Because when we look at pro sports, a lot of times we magnify it in such a bigger, magnifying glass that we don't really need to do, strictly because it's sports, they're on a grand stage and things of that nature, and that comes with the territory. It's understood. But at the same time, let's bring it and break it down to principle, because at the end of the day, that's what we got to stand on. If you don't stand on principles, what are you really standing on? And the principle of the matter is James Harden was likely promised a pay raise if he took this pay cut now. And the sucky part about taking the pay cut is Daryl Morey just brought back guys that he already played with in Houston, that we've already seen it does not work out with when it comes to playoff time, and bringing them to Philly, just to another team in another jersey, that didn't change anything, especially now that Harden has lost his step and he can't score the way he did when he was in Houston on a record-breaking, record-setting pace. Of course, he has Joel Embiid, so that could have been Daryl Morey's idea in terms of bringing those guys back and saying, hey, James Harden has the help in scoring with another superstar, so maybe these two can make it come together with the shooting around him. I don't know, maybe that's his idea, but regardless, it just didn't work. And from the outside looking in, or from a player's perspective, I would say, I would think you pretty much half-assed your job, and then when it came time to pay me, you're not trying to pay me because you're saying, well, look what you produced, look what you did for me. Because we can admit, James Harden's playoff performance was not the best. He had 2 good games at best. 2 good games is all I'm gonna give him personally. And that game 7, that's not how you show up. Joel Embiid, that's not how you show up either. But this ain't about Joel Embiid. This is about James Harden. And you were brought there to help Joel Embiid. And I'm gonna be honest, you didn't really do that in that game when your back is against the wall, when it's time to really win. And that's where Daryl Morey is kind of coming from. But the thing is, even if that's where you're coming from and recency really just, it's what have you done for me lately, you still promise something. And I've always been taught as a man, if you don't have anything else, you have your word. And from what it sounds right now, James Harden, if not promised, he was at least told something to be expecting a payday. And to be told that and that gets pulled from under you, you're not a happy camper. Now think about it in your own everyday job. If you take a pay cut in an effort to lessen your workload or make it easier on you for the entirety of this next year coming up, for them to say, okay, when you lessen that workload, you get right and do all the things we need you to do, we're gonna give you a pay raise when that time comes. And then you don't get a pay raise, you technically get a pay cut, because what money you could have made before, you could have made more, but now you're not making more. But on top of not making more, your boss, they're not bringing in the people that they said they were gonna bring in. They brought in some temp agency guys that don't know what they're doing and aren't as good or aren't as skilled at the job as the people that he could have and should have brought in. So now it looks like you're not producing, where really and truly it's the higher up. That's my best way of putting it. And I'm not gonna lie, y'all should sub right now or like whatever y'all want to do, because I came up with that on the top of my head. I promise to God, it ain't on my notes, it ain't none of that. That was off the dome. Regardless, between Daryl Morey and James Harden, this whole situation is very childish. Let's call a spade a spade. This whole situation is childish. Both sides are being petty. James Harden sat in front of people and said it twice. He said it like a PSA announcement, as if he was what's the president? I'm forgetting his name right now, but when he said, I did not have sexual relations, that's exactly how James Harden sounded. And then he doubled down, stood 10 toes, talking about, let me repeat that. That comedy. That's all I gotta say. Y'all really did your thing. The scriptwriters are going crazy, bro. These last 3 years with the scriptwriters, y'all gotta re-up for like 4 or 5 more years. I promise you, basketball storylines are going to continue going crazy. But in all seriousness, let's get back to some seriousness in the video. Now I'm gonna end with this, because I don't want this video to be very long. There's not much analysis to it, because it's either Harden gets traded or he don't, and he reports to camp and figures it out and plays this last year out, because you are under contract. So we already know what those 2 outcomes are. With regard to the history between James Harden and Daryl Morey, it's 10 seasons of those 2 being together, Harden playing under him. And in those 10 seasons where they have been together, James Harden himself has averaged 29, 6, and 8. He has 9 All-Stars, 7 All-NBAs, an MVP, a 3-time scoring champ, a 2-time assist champ, and 55 playoff wins. Now, it's nasty to say 55 playoff wins when none of them resulted in a finals appearance or a finals win or anything finals related. You weren't in none of that, and you had 55 wins in 10. That's disgusting. Let's be honest. But I have to also say this. A lot of people are trying to say Daryl Morey made James Harden. Daryl Morey is the reason James Harden is who he is today. And I'm going to say this. James Harden is that dude. James Harden would have been getting the buckets he was getting regardless of who the GM was, strictly because he was largely exploiting a rule in basketball, but also he's a supremely talented scorer, and that's just the kind of guy he was coming to Houston. He was like that before he even got to Houston. Daryl Morey did not make James Harden, so y'all gotta stop that narrative. That's a disgusting narrative that I'm not gonna let y'all push, because I saw too much of it on Twitter. Disgusting, just nasty. Stop doing that. I'm not ever gonna credit a GM for making a player. A player gets his stats how he gets his stats. A GM can never, and I mean never, get those stats for said player. So that's just a nasty way of analyzing and watching basketball. But that's all I got on the matter. Let me know what you guys think below about James Harden in this situation. I don't think he's out of bounds per se in terms of his message. The way he's going about it is okay. you're on the prima donna kind of act again, because the way it's released to the media and all that other stuff, we know it's a PR stunt and we know you're orchestrating it. So just come out and say it. You don't have to do all that. You don't have to do this. I wouldn't even say fancy, because it wasn't anything crazy, but it was dramatic. I think that's the best way to put it. But that's all I got for you guys in this video is TB with the greatest hoop stories and debates on the tube. And if you haven't already, drop a sub down below, drop a like, and comment below what you think about James Harden, because I really need to know. I appreciate you guys as always, and until next time, is your boy TB, and I'm out. Peace.